Hello, I'm doing this video for Bloke on the Range, and this is going to be in addition to his out of battery safeties that he did on the Lee Enfield and Mauser actions. And this is a Mosin out of battery safety, and it's in some ways it's quite similar to the Mauser and Enfield. In some ways, it's a little bit different. The Mosin and Nagant kind of had their own ideas for how to deal with this. And in front of us is a Mosin bolt. And this guide here is to keep the cocking knob aligned. So when you activate the safety, you physically take it completely out of battery and you are unable to fire it. And I'll show that on a receiver that I have. And then another thing we will be discussing is the ramps around here that work off of the third safety lug, so to speak. But with the Mosins, it's a lot, I guess you could say, simpler, because they have this great big, let's see here if I can rotate it. There we go. This great big cam, and you can kind of see it with how far it rotates. There we go. And it's these angles here and here. And I'll quickly take this out so we can get a better angle. But this angle right in here is designed so that if it were even slightly out of battery, it will force the bolt closed. And it's the same with this angle here, assists in pushing the round forward, chambering. And then this angle here assists in extraction. So there's lots of really steep angles on the bolt body and cocking knob that force the bolt into or out of battery. And I'm gonna take this cocking knob off real quick, and you can see how steep this angle really is. And that's one of the interfaces, and then this is the nub that'll interface with the bolt body, and it is, as you can see, fairly steep. And you also have this section that'll lock into here, which is part of the safety. This notch and that peg, or a reverse notch, lack of a better term, will slot into there when you pull it out and rotate it. And then you can see the overall design that literally forces the Mosin shut. And there's two parts to it. So there's also back to here, and then this angled cam track, or angled track, that'll do the same thing, because the notches will sit in their respective slots. And part of that is because this lovely spring powers 99.9% of everything going on in a Mosin bolt. The only thing that is not powered by that same spring in the Mosin bolt is in the bolt head itself, and it is the extractor, and it is its own spring. But this powers the firing pin. It forces the bolt closed. I'll show you how that works in just a minute. It's part of what makes Mosin bolts so difficult is because it is a fairly potent spring. And it works off of so many angles on the receiver. So this one is primarily for extraction. When you heft the bolt up, this helps push the bolt back. And this is primarily for chambering. So when you cram it down, you can see how it mates, and it'll slide down, and then so you can rotate it just enough, and then you're pulling out. Or on chambering, this hits and it forces it forward. So there's a lot of geometry into a Mosin bolt, and we're going to scoot over here to show you what I mean about. So, rifle is empty, nothing in it. Bolt forward. And see now, the firing pin and cocking knob are held shut. They don't go any farther forward. And you can tilt it forward and that done. Now, with the safety off, when you pull the trigger, everything gets rammed home. And that's due to these angles and this piece, and this angle and this angle. And then up here you can see where that's for extraction. And then we'll scoot you back. And chambering. And bam, snaps everything forward. And that all powers the Mosin bolt. Now, for the safety that works in the same way but 100 degrees opposite, is you pull it out and it locks, and now you can't do jack shit. And it locks. I don't know if you can get a good camera angle in there. But and then now bang, and then we're back to and there is how the Mosin video, or how the Mosin bolt out of battery safety works. It is quite literally designed to lock the bolt and the safety lug, which is also the handle, into battery before the firing pin can even get to where it will strike. And a good way of seeing that is you can see where the firing pin will protrude. See if I can do it right. And it won't get right there. It's, you know, it's a little protrusion. Right there it's flush. And it still has that far to go. So it's already mostly in battery by the time the primer will even contact metal. It's probably 99% of the way in battery. Like, it's almost completely full lockup before the firing pin even can touch metal. I have a feeling that between the angles and other mechanical resistance in the bolt, it's already robbed it of enough power to where it might not set off the cartridge. It might. I wouldn't recommend trying it at home. But the Mosin bolt in action are, oddly enough, fairly safe for what amounts to a very cheap and crudely made surplus military rifle. If you've seen Othias's video on the Mosin, you can get into the details and all the various different angles. If you've seen Iraq Veteran 8888's videos on what they've done to a Mosin, a lot of people would consider it torture because they do actually destroy it. But they end up doing some really silly, stupid, hot hand loads in a Mosin, and they can't blow the action up. I would not recommend doing that. My personal recommendation is to follow any known recipes, Hornady, Lyman, etc. Do be careful, and unless you are in the gunsmithing business, I would not recommend exceeding any of those, like no compressed black powder loads. But yeah, and that is the Mosin bolt and the Mosin out of battery safety and how it works. And here you can see that notch for the actual safety in and of itself. If I can get you back into, there we go. And it actually jumps that track, so you have to put everything back into track. And it is kind of a pain in the ass with the Mosin bolt due to how they're built, but they are what they are. And thus concludes my video of the Mosin Nagant action and bolt and the out of battery safety.